The second race of our California doubleheader brings us to Mill Valley, California from the Sawmill Raceway. Live, it's race 7, the Dude Wipes 350, here at Sawmill. Hello everyone and welcome back for more Power V8 Cup Series action. We thank you for tuning in with us each week, and we hope you guys are ready for the action that's going to unfold in this event. 42 cars getting ready to take on 41 laps at this tight, tricky 2-mile road course, with a lot of space and a lot of room for error as well. It'll be interesting to see how our V8 Cup Series drivers are able to handle this road course, the final of the 3 road course stretch that we've had here on the schedule. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go trackside to see our latest headlines. Coming off of an exciting race yesterday in Golden State for the Richmar Florist 400, today a total of 52 drivers came packing in here to Mill Valley to try to vie their way in to the Dude Wipes 350. With the amount of entries that we had, it would result in us needing a qualifying race to determine the order of the field. 37 cars would be going for 27 spots, meaning 10 drivers will be DNQ'd from this event. The immediate opening wreck we see here, Priya McShane would bring out the only caution of the 15-lap qualifying race, getting dumped by the likes of Bradley Ream and others. As you see here, it was from then on a pretty lackluster race up at the front, but a lot of exciting battles went on towards the back for those transfer spots. But in the end, Michael Canaday would lead from start to finish and go on to win the qualifying race. Let's take a look at how our top 20 in the points is shaping up after our 6th race at Golden State. Ethan Hayden would go on to reclaim the points lead after a nice 5th place finish, and Christian Russell not having a good race, finishing one of the last cars on the lead lap. So now the gap from 1st to 2nd has grown a little bit, as Hayden has 77 points compared to Russell's 69. Abel DeGroat is just shortly behind with 63 points, followed by Roberto Crown Jr. with 61, and Owen Scott getting his consistency, landing him in the top 5 in the point standings. Just shortly behind them by a couple points off involves James Fletcher, David Dixon, Chris White, now full-time, once again going to try to make a run for the championship. Jeff Bolton in the 9th position, just 1 point back on him, and Nelson Reeves rounds out the top 10 in the championship gauntlet with a total of 40 points. Remember, at the last 10 races of the season, the top 10 in points will be able to battle it out for the championship in the gauntlet. Those just outside looking in on the cutoff, just 2 points back in 11th place, is Devon Fair. After a great few performances he's had the last 2 races, has allowed him to get him into the top 15 in points, despite being a part-time effort. Justin Henley, Nick Kennedy, and Arvin Basic all behind them, tied with a 3-way tie for 37 points, and Zachary DeLello rounding out the top 15 that are locked into each and every single race. DeLello also in a tie with Boston Jones and Myron Felder for 34 points. Just shortly behind them is the Old Spice race winner Adam Wilson in 18th, Leland Hill sits 19th in points, and Ronnie Martin rounds out the top 20. Only 10 points separate from 10th place in the championship standings to 20th. So still a lot of racing, a lot of points to be grabbed, and a lot of opportunities for drivers to come up and make their names known through the field. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the starting lineup for tonight's race. Roberto Crown Jr. would land himself on the pole. He's been putting himself a pretty good string of some races lately, getting a lot of momentum, and he's going to look to try to use the most of it starting from the front row. Just outside of him, Michael Canaday and his part-time starts, only making 10 races this season, at least for his Sinclair Canada team. He won the qualifying race and will start from the outside pole. John McFadden, another part-time effort, doing really well in the 3rd position. A couple of part-timers here. Kenneth Williams, also the road course ringer, to his outside. He'll line up in the 4th position. Row 3 will see Nelson Reeves and Felix Rizzo, followed by Brett Bishop and last week's winner, Arvin Basic. Christian Vargas and Adam Wilson will be the ones that will round out the top 10. Then after them in row 6, we'll see Devon Fair and Carl Untersweffer, followed by Tari Lowell making his 2nd race this season, 3rd start overall, and Marcus Brown, another part-time effort as well. Jeremy Whalen, after making his debut race yesterday and getting a good bit of, I think he got a point or 2, going to try to do the same here today. He'll line up in the 15th position, and to his outside 3rd place in the point standings, Abel DeGroat. Then we'll have John Ritson and Jeff Bolton line up 17th and 18th respectively, and Owen Scott and Josh Moore will round out the top 20. Following them, we'll see Blake Parker and Boston Jones line up in row 11. Row 12 will feature Ben Crouch on the inside, and to his outside, Robbers Racing owner Miles Mashburn. Then another couple of team owners will make up row 13, Cam Wright Sr. and Christian Russell, the JCM and Robin Hood Racing owners. Russell, second place in the points, going to try to get himself back closer to that points lead once again. Behind them, we'll see Chris Parker and Justin Henley, and rounding out the top 30 is Zachary Fitzwater Sr. and JQ Halak, two drivers who had themselves very good races yesterday at Golden State. We'll see if they can replicate the same success here today. Outside of the top 30 will be James Fletcher, the Race 2 winner, and Ronnie Martin lining up in the 16th row. Row 17 will feature Adrian Rojas and Already Alejo. In row 18, we'll have Zachary DeLello and Ruben Gonzalez, followed by Chris White and our points leader, Ethan Hayden. He's going to have an extremely huge amount of work to do if he wants to be able to get himself up towards the front and into the points to keep building upon his points lead. And rounding out our 40th place positions is David Dixon on the inside and Cody Goforth on the outside. Dixon, another driver in the top 10 in the points, having to start from the very back of the pack. And then finally, taking a look now at our final two runners in the field, Myron Felder would be the last one that would be able to qualify in on his time, and Nick Kennedy will line up in the last place position of 42nd, having to use his top 15 points provisional just to be able to get into the race. Those who did not qualify and would finish outside the transfer spots in their qualifying race would include the likes of Aiden Smith, Bradley Reen, Riley Hill, once again missing out, Xander Howell, not having a good streak of luck after getting crashed out early in yesterday's race. He fails to make this race. And then we see here Dylan Hayden also failing to make his race for the second race in a row after coming back from that injury. And then Priya McShane, Solomon Sheridan, Alexander Rowe, once again, this is his second career start, second DNQ. Leland Hill gets his first DNQ for the season. A pretty bad outing for Leland Motorsports, as their only car to make the field was their part-time car in Tari Lowell. Otherwise, the two Hill brothers will not be featured in today's race. And finally, once again, Carson Jefferson, also DNQing for tonight's event. And now, let's go trackside for the command of the Dude Wipes 350 at Sawmill.
Drivers, start your engines!
All right, 42 engines are alive and fired away here at the Sawmill Raceway. Let's go ahead and take a look at our track analysis for today's event. We're going to go 41 laps around this 2-mile road course here in Mill Valley, California. Pretty cool day here. 73 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature, with a wind speed coming in at 5 miles per hour from the northwest direction. And the pit window is going to be just about the same at Golden State. Should be around 20 to 30 laps between when these guys will have to come down pit road. Just like the last race, the entire field will need to pit at least once if they want to be able to make it to the end of this race. Pace car is going to dive down pit road. Roberto Crown Jr. and Michael Canaday, are going to go ahead, bunch up the field, and lead them down here to the green. Green flag is out here at Sawmill. And there's a gigantic crash involving Christian Russell, our points leader. Many a cars involved as they're trying to make it around Boston Jones. That is a huge accident here. Caution is definitely coming out now as we're going to try to race our way back to the line. Michael Kennedy trying to get to the inside of Roberto Crown Jr. John McFadden, though, applying a tremendous amount of pressure, getting to the second position. He is clear, as we see Nelson Reeves moving his way up into the top 5 as well. Arvin Basic with a pretty good start, getting himself a few positions. As we're coming through the penultimate corner now, Roberto Crown Jr. is going to look to lead us back down to the yellow flag. As we'll see here now, the drag race down to the start-finish line. Crown Jr. will be first, McFadden second, and Michael Kennedy, the top 3, back to the line. We'll see them all race their way back. And then we will get some replays of that huge incident involving a good bit of some points contenders. So we're going to get a replay here. This wreck really starts all the way at the very beginning of the lap. You're going to see the inside line get very sketchy. Marcus Brown get knocked up almost get spun around. The same with Jeff Bolton and Abel DeGroat, more able to save it. But Bolton, they're basically all just, bumpy carring off of each other. And then Jones is going to get into the 33 or 34 Jeff Bolton, and that's just going to cause a gigantic pileup. Christian Russell is going to take an incredibly hard hit here as he goes up and a little bit airborne, rear first into the fence. Very big wreck involving quite a few drivers in it. One more look at the crash as it all unwinds. Marcus Brown makes an incredible save after DeGroat gets into him pretty good. And then you see a couple cars using each other as walls for the most part. They go just about 6 wide, and Jones clips his nose into the 34 and takes out John Ritson with him. Christian Russell all backed up against the wall. 2 of our points leaders involved in this accident. Go on board with Ethan Hayden, our points leader, who gets a very good view and a piece of the incident. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everyone, here to the Dude Wipes 350 from the Sawmill Raceway. We're under caution from the Lap 1 incident involving Alrighty Alejo, JQ Halak, John Ritson, Boston Jones, Ethan Hayden, Jeff Bolton, Christian Russell, Nick Kennedy, and Miles Mashburn. Alrighty Alejo, the only one from that incident who is forced to retire. We're going to get restarted here now on Lap 4, as the entire field is going to get reset, as everyone who was involved in that incident came down pit road to repair their damages. Everyone else who wasn't involved in that incident stayed out, like you'd probably predict. So now we see here cars getting all bunched up, coming through the final corner now, getting ready for the pace car to dive down pit road and bring us back to the green flag. Roberto Crown Jr. has held his pole position for the first lap of the race. Let's see if he can be able to hold on to it after this restart. Flagman still holding the yellow flag, but pretty soon it's going to turn to the green as the 21 car is in the restart zone and the green flag is back in the air. Already we're going to see John McFadden go for the lead. He might be able to make the move stick, and he does. The part-time driver for Ronnie Racing into the lead. John McFadden, though, not just yet. Here comes Roberto Crown Jr. back on the inside, 3 wide for third behind him between Reeves, Canaday, and Basic. McFadden and Crown Jr. still side by side through the S's. Ritson, though, McFadden had the advantage, but now it's going to turn to Crown Jr. as Roberto Crown is going to defend his position. Very good job from him. And now Nelson Reeves going to try to go on the attack on John McFadden as well. Peeks to the outside, but that won't look to be much for him as we come through the S section now. A lot of people having to back off as it bottlenecks up pretty tight through the final corner. Nelson Reeves trying to defend from Michael Canaday as Canaday wants to get around the 76 car. He's got a little momentum from the 89 in front of him and might be able to just get a ride, as he'll have the advantage going to the inside line here now. Canaday trying to get around Nelson Reeves. Brett Bishop also looking to make the move on Felix Rizzo just behind. And Canaday will have Reeves cleared. Bishop not going to get clear of Rizzo just yet, though. 2 of them going side by side. Felix Rizzo on the 51 going to have the momentum and the drive off. Arvin Basic, our winner yesterday's race at Golden State. Here he comes now trying to make a move. Through the S's they go, him and Brett Bishop. Kenneth Williams has fallen back on the start all the way down to 10th. And it's not looking too good as he's continuing to lose out on spots. Adam Wilson getting around him after missing last race. After he won at Old Spice, Wilson trying to have a bounce back race, get himself back in the points. Michael Canaday, though, closing in on John McFadden, trying to figure out a way to get around him. Ooh, gets a pretty interesting entry out of the corner. But McFadden going to have a better runoff as Roberto Crown Jr. will go on to lead on lap 6. Nelson Reeves back to the rear of Michael Canaday, but he left the door open for Felix Rizzo to really close that gap and get up on behind him. Might be able to make a move. As Rizzo really on the rear of the 76. Pretty much copying his exact line. This is for the 4th position. Arvin Basic just on the outside of the top 5. trying to get through, and it's a Vortex Racing 7 and 8. Christian Vargas and his team owner right behind him. As now here comes Felix Rizzo looking to the inside, and Nelson Reeves. He has the advantage. Does he have the momentum? Yes, he does. He will have Nelson Reeves clear, and Felix Rizzo into the 4th position now. McFadden still keeping an honest reach on Roberto Crown Jr., trying to keep him in check, keep him honest. As we see here, Rizzo going through and now has Nelson Reeves cleared. He might face some pressure from Arvin Basic. Reeves, though, wants to take a look back at that 4th position. Not able to do much with it, however. So right now the top 3 all under a blanket just to separate. Separates 1st from 3rd. As John McFadden just about half a second back from Roberto Crown Jr. Almost a 5th of the way through the race, as the 21 car has been in front all day long. Had a pretty strong showing as well. Last race ran mostly in the top 10. Did get involved in an incident with Solomon Sheridan, however, at the very end. But right now, Roberto Crown Jr. shaking that off, not letting it affect him, and he is out in front in lead, clear ahead. He's got nothing but clean air in front to go ahead and lead this race with. McFadden having to fend off from Michael Canaday, 2 part-time drivers in the top 3. Canaday, the owner of Sinclair Canada Racing, while John McFadden, the part-time development driver for Ronnie Racing. And that Dodge Charger. McFadden getting a good run off the corner. It's very good to see here some drivers who haven't had the best of luck. They're putting in some good runs, whether today or last race, at Golden State, like Adam Wilson here. Even though he DNQ'd, his team still got behind him. They still rallied with him. A lot of teams, they can be very unsupportive if you've managed to DNQ a race, but the Ronnie Racing team definitely helped out Adam Wilson keep his head focused and keep him in the best shape that he could possibly be, because here he is now up in the points positions at the very next race. Pretty good bounce back and a good start so far. Canaday, though, trying to really reel in the number 89 of John McFadden, as that 31 Banana Boat Honda is just getting ever so closer to the K1 Speed Charger. Roberto Crown Jr. has a pretty good gap. We're seeing a couple cars down pit road. Miles Mashburn and Ethan Hayden, 2 cars that were involved in that very first lap 1 crash. And something must have happened to David Dixon. He must have got involved with something, because unless he pitted as well. They're pretty far off the pace. We'll take a look at some of the cars that are damaged in the back. James Fletcher and Ruben Gonzalez trying to fight with the injured Jeff Bolton, who does not have a rear on that car. John Ritson, his team was able to get that thing back going pretty good, and he's trying to fight his way up through the field. Not in the greatest of positions right now at the moment, but there's still a lot of racing left to be had. And right now he's going to the inside of JQ Halak, who's also, like Jeff Bolton, does not have a rear end on that car. Looking through the field, though, Ethan Hayden might actually get lapped by Roberto Crown Jr. I'm not sure if Hayden will still be good to the end of this race. It's a possibility, but I'm pretty sure that 19 car will probably have to pit at least one more time, so it's looking like a 3-stop race potentially for Ethan Hayden. And in the VA Cup Series, that's pretty much a nail in the coffin, as the most stops you want to do is 1 at the very most if you have to. A lot of teams try to actually at some races get away with the no stop, and we've seen success in that in the past. But right now it's looking like not a good race for our points leader Ethan Hayden. At least the good news is most of the guys behind him in the points aren't doing so hot either. Christian Russell involved in that lap 1 wreck, as well as David Dixon. We saw Nick Kennedy involved. So a lot of those guys battling out for those top 10, top 15 positions were involved or in the back in some way or capacity. Because right now Ethan Hayden just trying to focus on keeping out of the way of the 21 Roberto Crown Jr. and trying to set clear ahead of him, our Daytona winner and current points leader right now, not having a great start to his race. Didn't get as much damage as some of the others in that first lap wreck, but he still got some damage, and something must have happened internal to the car as a result of it. He had to come down pit road once again along with Miles Mashburn, and I'm not too sure where I think Mashburn might have just gotten out a little bit ahead of Ethan Hayden. Yep, he did. So now we're seeing here Hayden trying to fend for his life, because if you go a lap down here, it's not like there's a lucky dog or a wave around. If you go a lap down, you got to fight and earn it back the hard way. You can restart up at the front on the cautions, but if you can't get around the leaders, you're not going to get that lap back. But right now, Roberto Crown Jr. putting a very good gap between himself and John McFadden. Over a second and a half, 2 seconds between him and Michael Canaday. Rizzo is starting to close in on the top 3, while Nelson Reeves is still fending off pressure from Arvin Basic. Basic trying to get himself into the top 5. This would be a gigantic points haul in the past 2 days for him. He's going to look to the inside of Nelson Reeves. Here he goes. Flies to the position. Makes the move, and I think he's going to be able to make it stick. Yes, he does. Arvin Basic now up into, oh, not just yet. Here comes Nelson Reeves on the outside. Reeves with trying to make the forward momentum work. Basic going to have the advantage through the penultimate corner. And now Arvin Basic will have the 76 clear. Here comes Brett Bishop on his own driver. Christian Vargas trying to make the move for 7th. The 12 and the 08 have been battling it out. Look, it's been pretty fun. I'd assume these guys are having a pretty good time racing in the top 10 with each other. Both of them haven't had the greatest of seasons. They both DNQ'd a race here and there. But, you know, right now, both of their cars sitting in the top 10. Marcus Brown, however, trying to join in on the fun. Making his 2nd race of the season in a part-time effort with Mercedes AMG. Kenneth Williams has really dropped back here at the start of this race, all the way down to the 10th position after qualifying and starting in the 4th position. Adam Wilson currently sits in 11th, with Jeremy Whalen trying to continue his point streak in 12th. And Zachary Fitzwater Sr. doing a great performance, moving his way up to the front, started mid-pack. He's now in the points paying positions, up in the 13th position, as he has demoted Tari Lowell. Lowell may also get demoted by Devon Fair, our pole sitter, at the last race at Golden State. But right now, Fair's going to keep it in line. Just outside the top 15 in points, we see Josh Moore. Cam Wright Sr. had a tremendous race last race, finished in the 2nd position. Here comes Jeremy Whalen to the inside of Adam Wilson. And Kenneth Williams also trying to make a 2-for-1 move potentially, as he's gone around Marcus Brown, trying to get around Nelson Reeves. They're going to go 3 wide for the position. This is for the 8th spot. As we are seeing right now, Marcus Brown was able to back out at the end and give up the middle line. He's going to try to follow in suit with Nelson Reeves and see if he can replicate some similar success of him. But Kenneth Williams right now with the forward momentum. Williams trying to fight back, try to claw his way back up through the field. Might have just been getting a feel for the car, letting the tires still come to him. Some of these drivers you're going to see, just like in the last race, their cars are going to fade away towards the progression of the run, while others are going to come to him. As Jeremy Whalen have some issues here. He dropped a good amount of positions, now at risk of falling outside the top 15. He was just, almost inside the top 10. But now the 56 car for Adbel de Groot and ATX Motorsports looking to be under some real pressure right now, as Josh Moore wanting to get himself into the top 15. He is sneaking his Robbers Racing number 3 car, the nose of it at the very least, under him. Here comes Devon Fair now, looking to the outside of Tari Lowell, excuse me. Fair going to have the line for the next run, but he's not going to have the momentum that he would quite like, as he's just going to have the nose in there to try to fend him off. Take a look at our leaders, see if they've approached lap traffic yet. Nope, Ethan Hayden still holding off Roberto Crown Jr. by a little bit. Felix Rizzo, though, is applying some pressure on Michael Canaday. Could be a possibility that Canaday could lose out on that 3rd position. Taking a look here, though, Devon Fair gets by Tari Lowell. Lowell stuck on the high side. Woo! A little bit of contact from Jeremy Whalen and Josh Moore. Moore getting a little impatient now, trying to get the 56 around him. Tari Lowell going to drop almost outside of the points. I think he will, as now he's going to lose out on some more positions to Cam Wright Sr. and possibly Ronnie Martin. Martin going to look to dive it into the corner and through the penultimate round. He's got it. So go ahead now, take a look at the front. As we're seeing here, our top 3 is still within, eyeing distance of Roberto Crown Jr., but he gets smaller and smaller in their vision each lap. Well, right now, John McFadden holding on to that 2nd position. Michael Canaday in 3rd, with Felix Rizzo ever so charging behind him. Roberto Crown, though, having a good bit of momentum here as we're coming through, almost halfway now. Just about, I'd say, 7 laps off of that. Take a look throughout the field. Some of our damaged warriors got themselves single filed out. A lot of the field appears to be single file. Here comes Blake Parker trying to make the move on Abel DeGroat. I think this is for around 20th. This is precisely for the 20th spot, yes. And Blake Parker made the move. He has him cleared. Adam Wilson trying to fight back on Nelson Reeves. And Reeves going to be able to defend the position. Now Reeves going to have Adam Wilson cleared. Zachary Fitzwater Sr. going to try to put some pressure on the 00 as well. Another Fitzwater Australia racing car trying to get around that 00. Right now up at the front, Crown Chevy Racing has been in control of this entire event as he is starting to close in on Ethan Hayden. Hayden could really be struggling here and might fall off a lap down to the leaders. Coming through now across the line to take lap 17. Besides the first lap incident, Roberto Crown Jr. has been out in front all day, and it's been a very relatively clean race as he's really catching up to the 19 of Ethan Hayden. It is interesting to see our points leader at the threat of going a lap down here. I know he did pit quite a bit now as we see Michael Canaday trying to reel in the 89 of John McFadden. He's going to get the nose in there. This is for the second spot. Canaday getting himself a good bit of momentum. And through the winding corners now, it'll go back to the advantage of McFadden through the S's. Canaday's got to try to hold the line, though, if he wants to continue to have that inside line. He will. And Canaday now will move up into the second position. McFadden might lose out on some more spots. Felix Rizzo going to dive under him for third. Arvin Basic also plotting to make a move on him for fourth. So here comes now Felix Rizzo, gone around the 89. John McFadden wants to try to get that third spot back at least, but not going to be able to do much with it. So as we see here, McFadden might go under some pressure from Arvin Basic as well. Basic going to look to the outside. As Christian Vargas now going to try to look to make a move on Arvin Basic potentially. Had the momentum, but towards the end of the run just wasn't able to do anything with it. Vargas going to have to stick back in line behind the 44 of Arvin Basic. As there's now almost a 3-second gap between first and second. Roberto Crown Jr. ever so catching up to the 19 of Ethan Hayden. We're going to get pretty close here, though, to our first round of pit stops. Hopefully the only round of pit stops for most of these guys. Unless for the ones that had to pit for damage. I know Hayden, like I said, I'm pretty sure he's going to have to pit possibly one more time in this race. Could be a 4-stop race with the way he has been going, or a 3-stopper, excuse me. But right now, Roberto Crown Jr. probably within the next 5 laps or so, I would say it's a possibility we could see him down pit road as he's been burning up the most gas out in front in that clean air. Right now, Canaday holding on to that second position. Felix Rizzo jumps himself up into third. We'll take a look throughout the field towards the back. David Dixon still trying to recover. Boston Jones, Christian Russell with a good bit of damage. They're having some bad days as well. Ruben Gonzalez trying to make the move on James Fletcher. Jeff Bolton with a terrible day. Felder just hasn't had good performance. Ritson and Halak trying to recover. As we see throughout the field, Chris White also trying to recover. Ronnie Martin faces some pressure from Blake Parker for probably around the 20th position. Appears to be 28th, actually. Ooh. Man, Tari Lowell has really dropped out of the top 15. Right now, 15th as the 56. Oh, that's actually, excuse me, this is for the 17th position. Tari Lowell in 16th. Whalen holding on to the last remaining points-paying position. So right now, we'll just have to see how the field is going to react to the pit cycles. Will Roberto Crown Jr. be able to put Ethan Hayden a lap down? Rizzo trying to keep Michael Canaday within touch. But Crown Jr. getting a good run to the outside. Trying to get some good forward momentum. Look throughout the field, very single filed out, spaced out. A lot of these guys just trying to get comfortable within their run and, you know, just make sure that they can nail their pit strategy right, get their pit cycles right, and make it to the end of this race. You never know what can happen. Might have a late race caution, or something could happen with the pit strategy. And this would be the time for some teams to start really getting creative here. If you could, you know, find a way like the last race with Arvin Basic to pit early or maybe a little bit later, to try to make an undercut or an overcut, to be able to gain yourself a lot of track position. It can really work out in the end. Like we saw, 1 lap was the difference at Golden State between cars right on the rear of Arvin Basic pressuring him and him getting a 10-second lead before one of the last race cautions. So that's just how quick it can all move. But, you know, a lot of these guys still keeping their positions in front of them with reach. Arvin Basic has been on the back of John McFadden for quite the few of these laps. The Vortex Racing duo just can't seem to really be separated from each other. They're full-time drivers. 2 of them now. Chris White is the newest full-time one. But still, Kenneth Williams doing a decent day, hanging on to a top 10 run, along with Marcus Brown and Nelson Reeves falling back just a slight little bit, but still it's a 10th and 11th position. Running right now for Fitzwater Australia Racing. Zachary Fitzwater doing all right. Adam Wilson trying to bounce back strong from last week's DNQ. And Devon Fair looking to continue to tack on some points, currently in the 13th position. Cam Wright Sr. sits 14th. And Josh Moore has found his way into the top 15 now. He's gone around Jeremy Whalen. And that will now mean Whalen is outside of the points. Everyone on back from him. Tari Lowell, Blake Parker, and more. Vargas going to run a little bit wide here. He may face a slight bit of pressure from the 80 cars. We're seeing Arvin Basic trying to make the move on John McFadden. He's going to come to the outside in this corner to hopefully get himself set up for the next corner. That's at least the goal. Basic now trying to power through, hold the momentum, hold the line. McFadden, though, might have the advantage. Doesn't have him cleared just yet, though, and that might just be the difference between Basic getting around the 89. Still side by side through the long sweeping right-hander. Now is going to be able to clear the 89 through the S section. And Arvin Basic moves himself into the 4th position, the 44 in 4th, as Roberto Crown Jr. really to that rear bumper of Ethan Hayden. Hayden with a little bit of some rear damage. He's been beaten and battered this whole race. Our points leader has not been doing good. But as it stands, Roberto Crown, then the next few laps, I'd expect him to come down pit road along with the majority of the field. We'll see who will try to make it the longest or the shortest. You know, depending on these strategies. Just up ahead, looks like Adrian Rojas might have made a early pit stop, as he has fallen back from where he was earlier. So Rojas might be trying to play the pit strategy game a little bit, try to see if he can do the same thing like Aiden Smith did in last race. Roberto Crown, though, really wants to get around the 19th and Hayden. No blue flag rules here in Power V8, though, so Hayden able to defend and fight for his lap if he so pleases. And that is allowing for Michael Canaday to slowly but surely start catching up. The gap was a little over 3 seconds a couple laps ago. Now it is down to just about 2 seconds, as Crown Jr. hasn't been able to find a good way to get around this 19 car just yet. It's allowing the 31 and the 51 to be able to start reeling in our leader. Kind of funny, our top 3, all their numbers end with the number 1. The 21, 31, and 51. It's even in according order. Coming around for lap 24, Roberto Crown Jr. is going to lead. Here comes Felix Rizzo down pit road. This is one of the first major players to come down pit road. We'll see if anyone else is going to come with him. Brett Bishop will, Kenneth Williams, Nelson Reeves, Adam Wilson. Going to all come down pit road here on lap 24. Jeremy Whalen, Blake Parker, Carl Untersweffer making their way down for their scheduled pit stops. Crouch, Chris Parker as well. We see here, there's Cody Goforth making his way into the stall. Oh, a little bit of contact between him and Felix Rizzo. Christian Russell had to slam on the brakes while Brett Bishop was getting out. And as we see here, cars coming down pit road. Felix Rizzo going to be one of the first ones to really start up the masses of the pit cycles. As Roberto Crown Jr. has backed off quite a bit from the 19 of Ethan Hayden. And I think he's just trying to give him some space and some room. Might be trying to pit soon and isn't wanting to lose any more time than he already has. As Michael Canaday still within a 2-second gap between himself and the leader. Here comes Roberto Crown Jr. now. He's going to come down pit road. Michael Canaday is going to follow along suit with him. Arvin Basic will do the same. We'll see here now pretty much everyone following suit. McFadden, Vargas, the 70 of Marcus Brown. Here comes Fitzwater now. We'll see if anyone decides to stay out. It doesn't look like it. I think the rest of the field who hasn't pitted the lap before is going to come down and pit now. 2 more Vortex Racing cars, Abel DeGroat and Chris White making their way down pit road. Looks like JQ Halak might actually be staying out. Not sure if she already pitted with due to some prior damage. But it is looking like the 13 for the moment might be the interim leader. Might try to go and get herself a lap led. But right now, as the cars are coming out, let's see where our leaders are going to be. Here's Felix Rizzo right up to the rear of Roberto Crown Jr. pitting a lap early. Definitely seemed to help. As now the 51 of Felix Rizzo right up to the rear of Roberto Crown Jr. This is really the battle for the lead. Even though some of the cars have cycled through, Miles Mashburn still has to pit, I believe, for his scheduled stop to make it to the end. But Rizzo looking to the inside with a little bit of the fresher tires. His tires are more warmed up and in tune with the tread. Rizzo to the inside looking for the lead. Still fighting on the outside, side by side with Roberto Crown Jr. Felix Rizzo not giving up, putting in a lot of fight and a lot of effort as his team owner is right in front of him. But here comes Rizzo, able to clear Roberto Crown Jr. and is going to get by him for what is going to be the interim lead. At the moment, it's looking like JQ Halak will have to wait and see if she stays out or if she decides to come down pit road. Or actually, no, Halak is on the... Oh, that's my excuse. Halak isn't even... She's on the very end of the lead lap, so she is on a threat of being a lap down. So, yeah, this is the lead right here. Miles Mashburn now going a lap down, and Roberto Crown Jr. losing out a lot of time on the 51 of Felix Rizzo. Roberto Crown led the first 25 laps. Felix Rizzo going to try to lead the last set here, about 16 to go a little bit under. Or over, excuse me. Mashburn now facing a lot of lap traffic. He is the lap traffic. Brett Bishop managed to get around Michael Canaday as well. Bishop able to position himself better. Christian Vargas still around where he came out. Nelson Reeves might have gained a few spots. John McFadden really lost out on some ground, though. Not a good pit stop. Went all the way from 3rd to, or 5th down to 8th now. He's been dropping back throughout the majority of this race. But right now, Felix Rizzo is our new leader, and he's looking to set sight and run away with it, as he has about a half a second lead over the 21, or a second and a half lead now over the 21 as the leaderboard updated correctly. Absolutely insane racing we've been seeing today here. The pit strategy calls have been crucial as Felix Rizzo has been able to leapfrog his way up into the lead as a result of it. Going to see now Basic in that 5th position, followed by Christian Vargas in 6th, so he was able to gain at least 1 spot. Nelson Reeves in 7th, John McFadden sits 8th, Kenneth Williams 9th, and Marcus Brown make our top 10. Look at this, Adrian Rojas with a really, really cheeky strategy, pitted 2 laps earlier than everyone else. He's in the 11th position. Rojas hasn't been having the greatest of luck. I don't think he scored any points so far this season, and damn near every race he's been in, he's wrecked in all of them in some way, shape, or form. But right now, that 65 team is giving itself a really good run that's needed. Zachary Fitzwater Sr. runs wide off the corner, going to lose the spot to Adam Wilson, may even lose the spot to Devon Fair here in the meantime as well. So Zachary Fitzwater going to drop down to 13th. Jeremy Whalen in the 56 is our last car in the points standings, the points finishing standings right now. So Josh Moore just on the outside in 16th, looking in for those points paying positions. But here comes Adrian Rojas. Like we said, that cheeky strategy, very similar to what Aiden Smith did in the last race. Rojas took a little bit of some shades from him and is making it work for himself in 11th after being around the 30th position for most of the race. Meanwhile, though, Roberto Crown Jr. starting to face some pressure from Brett Bishop. Crown Jr. hasn't been able to really drive this car within actual traffic or dirty air, and maybe could have made a slight over adjustment or two, as right now he's looking to face some pressure from Brett Bishop. Bishop had an amazing pit strategy, leapfrogged himself up quite a few positions, just about 5 I want to say. and he's looking to try to go and fight for the second position now as a result of it. So Brett Bishop with a good pit strategy, pitting a lap early, definitely did some dividends for quite a few of these drivers. Take a look throughout the field now. Seeing here Miles Mashburn getting lapped by Cam Wright Sr., Tari Lowell doing all right, keeping the car clean and within the top 20. Abel DeGroat, also the same can be said about him, but he wants to try to get into the points, considering the fact that Christian Russell and Ethan Hayden, it's looking very unlikely that they're going to score any points. DeGroat currently sits in 20th, so he's got quite a few spots to make up to get any points, let alone some that'll make a true difference. Chris White battling it out with the 33 of Chris Parker. This is for the 22nd position, and just behind them, Ronnie Martin now looking in to try to follow Chris White in line. White going to get clear of the 33. Coming up to just 12 laps to go. Felix Rizzo is still out in front and in command of this race. Berto Crown Jr. trying to hold off Brett Bishop and close the gap. It is now down to just about a little over a second. But nonetheless, Crown Jr. is going to have quite a bit of work to do if he wants to be able to catch Felix Rizzo. Roberto Crown Jr. has been very strong this season. I expect him to be a championship contender with how he's been racing as of late. He dominated our second race at Atlanta, and he's shown some really strong runs here throughout these past few races. Along with our last race at Golden State, he got the fastest lap of the race, which right now we can take a look. Our fastest lap currently is belonging to John Ritson, which is pretty impressive considering how, the wreck that Ritson got himself into at the very start of the race. Ritson nowhere near the points positions though, so unfortunately those bonus points would not be awarded to him. They would simply just go to no one unless someone else within the top 15 can get the fastest lap of the race. But really, start to look out here. Roberto Crown Jr. is definitely reeling in the number 51 of Felix Rizzo as we're coming to just 11 laps to go now. The laps are winding down and the time is ticking between Felix Rizzo and his first career win. Rizzo hasn't had the best of starts to his season. DNQ'd the initial race at Daytona. He's been involved in a few accidents and wrecks, but boy would it be huge for this team based on a good pit strategy call to find their way up to the front for the win. Still got quite a bit of time though, and it is looking like Roberto Crown Jr. and Brett Bishop are reeling them in. They're kind of working together almost, not really fighting with each other too much. And Michael Canaday, too, just slowly creeping off in the back. It's just a 2.5 second gap between first and fourth. So Crown Jr. Crown Jr.'s got to really focus. Here comes Brett Bishop on the outside, though. Now he just pretty much threw caution to the wind, what I said. And Michael Canaday might look to attack as a result of that, as now Rizzo should be able to extend that gap just a slight bit. Yep, he will. As a result of the battling for position, Canaday going to try to get around Brett Bishop for the third spot. But Bishop will stay clear. And as a result of the 12 trying to make a move on the 21, he's going to lose some ground on him. And not just yet is it over. Canaday still fighting hard with the 12 and now looks to try to get him clear through the S's. He will. Michael Canaday will move up to the third position. But Felix Rizzo doing whatever he can to hold on to the lead and his momentum. JQ Hillock in the back. We'll take a look at some of the cars in the back here. David Dixon finally catching up to the pack here after his pit call. Christian Russell having a terrible day. Jeff Bolton not doing too well. DeLello not doing good. Kennedy not having a good run either. A lot of guys within the point standings. They're just outside of it, as it's looking like the 56 of Zachary Fitzwater Sr. His car is really fading away from him on this run as he's down in 15th. And might face some pressure from either or of Josh Moore and Cam Wright Sr. Fitzwater losing out on some spots and some points. As we see here now, Adrian Rojas, the 1 in 11th, kind of bunching up the field from 10th. Rojas trying to hang on to that 11th spot, try to get some points, his first points of the season. See throughout the pack, Canaday now even trying to reel in the 21 of Roberto Crown Jr. Michael Canaday, his car is really starting to come into him in the developing stages of this long green flag run after our green flag stops. So far, we've only had one caution in the race at the very beginning of it. A very big incident, but only one retiree as a result of it. right now. Crown Jr. has a lot of work to do to try to get up to that 51 car. About a second separates them. And Michael Canaday trying to stick in line and see if he can allow the 21 to get up to the 51 and let them battle each other out and reel in the likes of Michael Canaday and Brett Bishop. Basic has been very quiet by himself in 5th after this green flag run, just kind of minding his P's and Q's. Vargas, same thing can be said about him in 6th. Reeves in 7th. McFadden trying to hold off a charging Kenneth Williams, in 8th. John McFadden, is running the top 10 all race, done very well, but I know that he would like to be having a better finish. Has a little bit of damage from when he got into that car on pit road, so that might be affecting him. He's got some right side damage there. Meanwhile, though, Fitzwater starting to face some pressure from Cam Wright Sr. The two seniors are going to fight with each other here for the last remaining point within those top 15 positions. Fitzwater holds it, but Cam Wright Sr. going to try to go ahead and get himself a move made. Here comes Devon Fair looking to make a move on his teammate for the 13th position. Fair will have the inside line and forward momentum. Whalen, though, will try to get a good run on the outside. Not able to do much with it. Devon Fair should make easy work of his teammate. No, not quite yet. Whalen actually got a pretty decent run out the corner. So Whalen's still trying to defend for his position in his 2nd career race. He wants to make it a 2nd straight race with the points finish. And so he will defend that spot from his teammate. Slowly but surely, Roberto Crown Jr. has been reeling in Felix Rizzo here. Coming up now to the very end of the race with just 6 laps to go. Felix Rizzo has to be very careful, hit his marks, and try to hit his lines as clean as he can, because he's got not 1, not 2, but 3 guys all within a 2-second gap between him that could easily pounce if his car fades away from him or if he starts making too many mental mistakes. So we're now coming up to just 5 to go here. Or 6 to go, excuse me. There's still 6 to go. Top 5 is spread out, but keeping it, the top 4 at least keeping a very close eye on each other as they're all within a blanket. Felix Rizzo doing everything in his power to try to hang on from Roberto Crown Jr. Crown wants to be able to win this race. He's dominated races here before in the late, and it's been a common theme. He's been able to dominate and lead the majority of the race, but he's not able to get there to close it out when it counts. Roberto Crown still searching for that first career win. Everyone within the top 4 is looking for a first career win in the Power V8 Cup Series. Rizzo coming along the penultimate corner and is going to bring us to 5 laps to go. We'll take a look at how the field is looking. Take a look at some of our front runners. Basic there in the 5th position. Vargas still hanging on to 6th with Reeves in 7th. 8th is John McFadden, putting a good gap between Kenneth Williams and Marcus Brown in the top 10. Battling it out for what looks to be 11th is Adrian Rojas and Adam Wilson. Get a good look at that battle as they are battling it out for the 11th spot. Rojas has the inside line, but that'll turn to the outside here. Adam Wilson picked the right line to set himself up for the move. Coming up the hill, Wilson going to have the momentum, and he will have the 65 cleared by the end of the corner. So Adam Wilson gaining another position, trying to build upon that points total that he has, once again to the top 15 of the point standings. And that's a good way of doing so, getting yourself points at the end of the races when it counts. Roberto Crown Jr., though, still trying to do everything he can to keep that 51 within his reach, but then looking like Rizzo might have been saving his tires a little bit, potentially, as, now he is building that gap even more. Now, there's a little bit of lap traffic ahead. Both J.Q. Halak and Ethan Hayden, both on the cusp of going a lap down. David Dixon 3 laps down, and Miles Mashburn already 1 lap down, so might add another 2 drivers to that list. So we see here now, here comes Rizzo diving into the inside of Ethan Hayden, going to get him a lap down, make quick, easy work of him actually, something that Roberto Crown Jr. was unable to do for a majority of the race. Rizzo just easily gets around the 19 of Ethan Hayden. Not a good day for a points leader. I'm pretty sure at the end of this race, he'll still find a way to be within the points lead unless Roberto Crown Jr. gets a monstrous haul of points here. Gets, right up to the rear of Ethan Hayden. I thought he was going to get into him for a second. He is really on his rear bumper, trying to just get him around as quick as he can, but Hayden is just being a roadblock. Now Crown Jr. finally able to get to the outside of him and around him, as it's looking like Hayden is going to fall in line. Not before holding up Roberto Crown Jr., killing off even more time between himself. Now the gap falls to 2 seconds between the 51 to 21 with just 3 laps to go. Felix Rizzo has his sights set, trying to get his first ever win in the Power V8 Cup Series. Crown Jr. has led the first 25 laps, but Rizzo took the lead on lap 26 and hasn't let go of it since. Fighting through the S's now, as we're seeing here, third and fourth making their way through the lap traffic of Ethan Hayden. Brett Bishop trying to get around him, and he is now cleared. Arvin Basic, this has allowed him to catch up to fourth and third. He's been able to close some gap and momentum. Hayden hopefully going to allow his teammate to go by with ease, and he does. So Hayden now been lapped by the top 5. But something would have to go catastrophically wrong for Felix Rizzo for him to mess this up. We're coming to just 2 laps to go here. A little bit of lap traffic ahead, but I don't think Rizzo is going to catch them, at least to a point where it'll affect him. See if Crown was able to decrease that gap at all. No, he was not. If anything, it just got larger. This is now 2 1/4 of a second. Canada sitting in third. Bishop and Basic as well minding their business. Christian Vargas trying to get around Ethan Hayden, the lapper. But it's looking like smooth sailing here for Felix Rizzo. Just about a lap and a half to go now, as he actually is really catching up to those lap traffic. So never mind me, they could be a slight factor. But hopefully they'll be able to stay clear and stay out of the way. Roberto Crown Jr. would love for them to hold him up as much as they possibly can. But I'm not too sure how that's going to work coming through the penultimate corner. As you see now here, Felix Rizzo making his way through, trying to get around the lappers. The white flag is in the air here at Sawmill. Rizzo gets around Miles Mashburn, puts him down another lap, and I think pretty soon we'll be able to get around JQ Halak. The 51 dives it to the inside of the 13. 13's going to go up high, try to give him the room. Not going to be needed. Roberto Crown Jr. trying to get around Miles Mashburn. Mashburn being a little bit of a moving pylon for the 21. He gets up into his way, and this is definitely for sure going to kill the chances of Roberto Crown Jr. He'd basically need Felix Rizzo to wreck with JQ Halak, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Halak being very respectful, giving plenty of room. And, yep, she's going to stay clear of the leader as Felix Rizzo now coming through the final set of corners. One more time through the penultimate corner. Felix Rizzo coming to the line is going to win the Dude Wipes 350 here at Sawmill. What a race. Lots of action there towards the end. Good pit strategy overall. But Felix Rizzo is your winner here at Sawmill, the second winner of the California doubleheader. Absolutely fantastic job by him and his team to be able to go ahead and come up with a great pit strategy call to leapfrog them all the way from the top 5 into the first place position. Felix Rizzo getting his first ever win in the V8 Cup. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the finishing results here from the Sawmill Raceway. Felix Rizzo, with a great pit strategy call, would go ahead and take home the win over Roberto Crown Jr. Crown Jr. was able to dominate the majority of this race, started from the pole, just wasn't able to finish there. Finishing in third was Michael Canaday, another good run for the part-time owner for Sinclair Canada Racing. Following him is the Vortex Racing owner of Brett Bishop, and Arvin Basic getting himself a nice streak of top 5s after getting a great win at the last race at Golden State. He finishes in 5th. Christian Vargas brings home a 6th place position for Vortex Racing, followed by Nelson Reeves, John McFadden, Kenneth Williams, and Marcus Brown would round out the top 10. Finishing just outside of those positions would be Adam Wilson, Jeremy Whalen, Zachary Fitzwater Sr., Cam Wright Sr., and Adrian Rojas. They would be the final ones of those that would finish in the top 15 points paying positions. Rojas had himself a great pit strategy call that moved him up from around the 30s to get himself into the final point spot of the race. He gets himself his first point of the season. Finishing just outside the points would include Josh Moore, Tari Lowell, Devon Fair, Blake Parker, and Carl Untersweffer, all having quiet but decent runs, just no points to show for it. Then outside the top 20 would be Chris White, Abel Grote, Ronnie Martin, Chris Parker, and Ben Crouch making up the top 25. Owen Scott, Myron Felder, and John Ritson would end up finishing in 26th, 27th, and 28th. Cody Goforth brings up 29th, and Zachary DeLello would round out our top 30 positions. 31st would be Nick Kennedy, followed by Ruben Gonzalez, Justin Henley, and Jeff Bolton, and James Fletcher, among those finishing in the top 35. Bolton involved in that big lap 1 incident. Christian Russell and Boston Jones would finish 36th and 37th, the final ones to finish on the lead lap. And then those finishing a lap down, JQ Halak would go 1 lap down along with Ethan Hayden, and Miles Mashburn would finish in 40th, 2 laps down. Just behind them would be David Dixon. He must have ran over some, had a bad pit call. Just a bad day overall for him. 3 laps down, the only one to finish ahead of Already Alejo, who retired from that lap 1 incident. Let's go ahead now and take a look at how the championship standings are lining up after our 7th race of the season. Roberto Crown Jr., the new points leader, our 3rd points leader so far this season, with his 2nd place finish and getting the most laps led, catapults him up into 1st with 91 points over Ethan Hayden's 77. Many drivers here, Christian Russell, Abel DeGroat, all maintaining their points, just dropping down 1 spot. Arvin Basic would shoot up into the top 5 with 55 points. Nelson Reeves also gained a bunch of points positions, just 1 point off of him. Owen Scott falls a couple of spots down to 7th, James Fletcher down to 8th, and David Dixon, as past 3 races, the road courses have not been very kind to him, as he hasn't been able to score any points in the last 3 races. He's starting to get on a free fall, but still within the top 10 of the championship gauntlet. Brett Bishop now climbs his way into the top 10 after a nice top 5 finish. He will be the last one in on the championship gauntlet with 45 points. So remember, the top 10 at the last 10 races of the season will battle it out for the championship gauntlet. Just outside looking in on the gauntlet is Chris White with 43 points, followed by Jeff Bolton and his 42. Adam Wilson and Devon Fair are tied for 38 points now after their 2 back-to-back good performances. And Justin Henley rounds out the top 15 in points that is locked into each and every single race. He is in a tie right now with Nick Kennedy, but due to Henley having a win at the 3rd race of the season for the Coca-Cola Shootout, that would give him the tiebreaker and right now puts him locked into each and every single race. So that means that these guys outside of the top 15, Nick Kennedy, Zachary DeLello, Boston Jones, and Myron Felder, all have to race their way into the main event still, just like they have been recently. And finally, we see Felix Rizzo, our race winner, with his first career win, breaks his way into the top 20 in points. Let's see if he can build any momentum upon today's win. We'd like to thank you for tuning in and joining us once again for the California doubleheader, yesterday's race at Golden State, and for today's race here at Sawmill. We had a lot of action, a lot of fun, and a lot of excitement. Be sure to go ahead and check out our social medias, the Power Official, Instagram, and our sponsors right here on the screen. You can check out their Twitter and Instagram handles as you see fit. And finally, thank you once again for joining us in today's race. We're going to go on a little bit of a week hiatus to be able to get some stuff done for the next race for Phoenix, which should be the Good Sam 400. So you won't want to miss that. Coming up next race, Phoenix. That'll be in 2 weeks' time. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Once again, this has been the Power VA Cup Series, and we'll see you at the next race in Phoenix.